amazing grace of God. It is an invasion of the sovereign love of God, penetrating the gap of darkness with the overwhelming power of His marvelous light. It bridges the gap between man and God. Take a journey through the amazing grace of God with your host, Sarah Abraham, as she shares the compelling stories of those who walked in His covenant and have overcome by the amazing grace of God. Join us weekdays this fall for Amazing Grace with Sarah Abraham.
Welcome to Amazing Grace. We are so delighted you have tuned into us today, and we welcome and enjoy bringing amazing testimony from amazing people of God whose life has been transformed by the amazing grace of His love, by the amazing grace of His compassion and His purpose that is fulfilled in people's life. We have such an amazing guest with us today with an amazing name, Al McWill.
Al McWill.
A powerful woman with three men's name. How could she go wrong? Welcome to Amazing Grace, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, because my life has been amazing and I've been saved by grace more than one time.
Amen. You are an incredible singer. The Urban Country Gospel Story. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Oh, wow. The Urban Country Gospel Story would have to begin back in high school. I went to a predominantly white school, grew up proudly Baptist, 47 pastors and preachers in my family, and everything I heard was gospel, except every now and then we could get music from Chicago on WGRT. When I went to school, however, I got a lot of bluegrass, a lot of country songs. And as my life progressed on, I graduated from there, moved to New York, and I worked hard to get this twang that I had out of my voice, because it just didn't make sense. Left New York, moved to California, went to the hospital, got married, went to the hospital, had a baby, almost died. And it was at that point when I came out of the hospital during my recuperation period. They only gave me 72 hours to live. And God really used that death as a conduit for me to come closer to Him.
You know, I have a medical background, so I understand a little bit about that, and I just said, that is nothing short of a miracle.
They nicked my bowel. They nicked my bowel during a planned cesarean section.
If that happens, your whole blood system supply gets contaminated.
For 5 days, all of the waste spilled in my system, and I should have died.
Correct.
I didn't even have a temperature. I didn't even have a fever, and that's why they kept saying this is what we think it might be. It can't be that. Long story short, I walked around the hospital when my system started working. They said, "Oh, we're going to send you home." But my mother was praying, and she was praying that my system would just work like water. And when my system worked one time, they said, "We're going to send you home." But I kept feeling funny. So I'm walking around the corridor, and this is a very prestigious hospital in Los Angeles. And I walked around the corridor, went to the restroom. When I stood up where they cut me for the cesarean section, everything just busted and ran all over my legs. And I'm standing there, and I love God because He has a sense of humor. I'm thinking, what do I do? And the Holy Spirit said, press the nurse's button. I pressed the nurse's button, and I ran to the door. When I got to the door, I had these beautiful, I work in the garment industry, so I had these beautiful pink fluffy house slippers on. Time I got to the door, the quick thought was, my house shoes are ruined. And I'm screaming to the top of my voice. The one nurse comes and she backs away. When she looked and saw all that stuff on me, she left. This other nurse came and she grabbed me under my arms, and I kept saying, "I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die." She said, "God is not going to let you die." There is something about His name in the midst of trouble. When she put me on that bed and said, "God is not going to let you die," I calmed all the way down. They later found out that my bowel had been nicked. They took me into emergency surgery. And when I came out, I tell you, I looked around, and there was so much equipment around me. My bishop at the time said when he came to the hospital and looked at me, he wondered himself if God could really heal me. They told my mom they'd give me 72 hours to live, that the 8 holes that had been made in my body would never close up, and that the way they had to cut me, they would have to leave me open, and I would wear bandages for the rest of my life, and I would have to wear a bag. Well, my mom said she listened to that, and she said that she
canceled it.
She canceled it. She called everyone that could get a prayer through, and one day shy of 30 days, I went home. But the interesting time while I was there, I was losing so much momentum in my spirit. One particular night, I remember taking a walk. It would take me the longest to walk down the corridor. And I got back to my bed and I looked up to heaven. I said, Lord, you said in your word, if I abide in you and you abide in me, I can ask what I will, and I need you to heal me.
Right, yes.
Well, I got back in the bed because I'm bandaged all here. I got back in the bed and the most incredible thing happened. I began to feel this pulling out of my body. It's almost like my entire body was being suctioned. Something was being suctioned out. Long story short, I ended up having an encounter with God that night. And the Lord told me, he says, now, you're going to get some more bad news, but you're going to go home on Friday. I said, okay. And at that point, I jumped out of the bed and I just started shouting all around the room. My sister came in the room, and finally I sat in a chair. You know, after the glory comes, the enemy always comes. And she said, you wouldn't let anybody in the room because the Lord said, I'm doing my work. Keep the door closed. And they were saying, well, she won't take her medicine. She's losing her mind. And they said, well, what denomination are you? Everybody wants to put everything to a denomination.
No.
My sister said, we're Baptist. She said, well, she's calling on the name of God, and she's not letting anyone in the room. Well, what I was saying, I remember well, I was saying, God is at work. God is doing his work. No more medicine. Just let him finish. And when my sister came in the room and I was sitting down after I'd been shouting around the room, she said, what's wrong? I said, I'm not going home. I said, look at me. She said, why are you saying that? I said, well, I've shouted and God told me I'm going to go home. She said, well, when did he say you're going to go home? She said, he said you're going to go home on Friday. I said, said I was going to go home on Friday. She said, well, today is just Tuesday.
That's right.
Long story short, they put me in a larger room because they said I was losing my mind. Got in the larger room. Doctor came in like a day or so later, and they said, uh-oh, it looks like your lungs are going to collapse. I was getting ready to go into a dark place, and that voice came back to me and said, I told you, you're going to get some more bad news, but you're going to go home on Friday. Doctor came in, he looked, he ran out, read my chart all day, came back. He said, oh, your lungs haven't collapsed. He said, but I prepared for you to go home tomorrow. And the doctor, Nick, my bowel, came in. She says, well, she's not going to be able to go home tomorrow because she's going to need help at home. He said, I have it all set up. He said, you're going home tomorrow. Mind you, they had told me that so many times. They even took my baby home, you know, that you live for that moment to leave the hospital with your baby.
With your baby.
Well, my sisters took my baby home. And so I remembered God said, I said, wait a minute, what's tomorrow? He said, tomorrow's Friday. He said, what's wrong? I said, God told me I was going to go home on Friday. He said, well, God was right because you're going home on Friday. Went home on Friday. Several months later, after healing, I was in a group called the Ricky Grande Chorale. Had been singing with that group for a while. A year or so later, I'm in Chicago. The Lord said it's time to leave the group. I said, well, what am I going to do? Because we always identify ourselves with what we do or who we do it for.
Or who we are associated with.
Exactly. And the Holy Spirit said, ask me to introduce you to yourself. I said, why don't you just tell me who I am? God said, I will never defy your free will. I'll give you insight, but it's always your choice. And I prayed the prayer. I said, Lord, introduce me to myself. Seemed like it was months later the answer came. One morning I woke up. I was living in Compton, California. In this ear, the Holy Spirit said, your country gospel. I said, you have fallen off the throne. I am not going to do that. Because if I do that, white people are not going to like me. They're going to think I'm trying to steal their music. And black people are going to call me a sellout.
Yeah.
Well, all my life, I had always sang this one song. If you miss this train I'm on, you will know that I am gone. You can hear the whistle blow 100 miles.
I love that song.
You know that song?
I love that song.
I love that, and
It's one of my favorite
I always
songs.
sang that song
Sing
on the
that
bus.
again, one more time.
Not a shirt on my back, not one penny to my name. Lord, I can't go back home this way. Then it says, this way, this way, this way, this way. Lord, I can't go back home this way. I sang that all the time. And it was something about when I sang it, it made me feel complete. Well, I sang everything I sang good because I grew up in Baptist church and sing, I love the Lord. He heard my cry and pitied every groan. So my thought was, I've been singing this song like this all my life. Why do I need to do it differently? And the Lord said, well, just sing it out of your spirit. I love the Lord, he heard my cry, pitied my every groan. Long as I live, as trouble rise, I'll hasten to his throne. I love the Lord, he heard my cry, pitied my every groan. And I said, wow. He said, I've given you a gift.
That's right.
I said, then I need you to confirm it. If I'm urban, if I'm country gospel, then you got to confirm that for me. I'm taking Stevie Wonder from my hometown to the airport to Chicago. So I put in this song, which had not been a song before. It was a poem that I wrote about my dad and mom's marriage that had ended really badly. And God had given me a poem, and he later showed me that was a song. So I'm playing this song for Steve, and after it goes off, I said, has God ever given you anything difficult to do? Duh, yes, he had. And he began to minister to my spirit as to why I had to call it urban country gospel. And when his voice ended, I knew the Spirit had confirmed that I was Al Macwell, urban country gospel. And later the Lord told me, I said, why do we need this music? And a very good friend of mine, she says, Al, everyone doesn't know that God has heard their cry. And God told me, he said, the family structure that I built to continue my word and my work has broken down, so wisdom and my ways are not being passed on. Urban country gospel is my way of getting wisdom, inspiration, and insight for daily living for practical uses by my people.
Amen.
He said,
That's profound.
he said, you want a song that you can just sing one day a week on Sunday. God said, but I've given you a message for every day.
Every day.
Urban country gospel is an everyday message.
Everyday message.
Everyday message.
So tell me what is happening with you now
Oh,
in
wow.
Houston.
What's happening with me now, first of all, I've stopped fighting it. Because when God gives you something, it's never in your comfort zone.
He
but
takes
it's
you
never
out of your comfort zone.
Right, but it's
He
never
does.
far from where you've been. What I began to do when I finally embraced it, Bishop Ulmer said in Los Angeles, he was preaching, he said, we have to understand what embracing means. He said, one hand is stretched forward and one is stretched backwards. That's straddled. He said, but when you let go of what's in the back and bring the other arm around, you have a warm embrace. And I was complaining, and I was telling the Lord, I said, you know, you haven't really done this and done that. He said, but you haven't embraced it. What I'm doing now is I put both of my arms around the will of God. I'm understanding that what he's speaking to me is a message to his people. Amen. I'm making myself available, working on a new project now, finishing up several books because I just lost 60 pounds.
Wow.
And I lost 60 pounds because the Lord said, you said, what am I doing now? I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm immersing myself into closer relationship with God, that I can hear what the Spirit is saying so that I can tell people what God is saying and not what I want them to hear. And when the Lord told me, he said, you're working to become physically fit, but I need you to work to become spiritually fit. He said, because when your spirit is aligned with mine, everything else will fall off. And I've been spending time writing. So the book that I'm working on is called The Spiritual Side of Weight Loss. And it's about aligning your spirit with the will of God. That physical, mental weights can fall off.
Amen. It's all that excess baggage.
Oh. And it's all going through a song. I never understood that so much can change with music. When I wrote the song Stand Still, it was about my marriage. And I put my husband out, and the Lord gave me this melody in my head through instructions, because he knows that I've always been one of those hard-headed children. But he knows that if he puts it to melody, I'll hum it and I'll remember it.
That's one thing about the melody and the music is it's kind of repeats in your brain. It's just set on repeat.
Oh, yes.
Again and again and again. So there's a difference in talking.
Yes.
There's a difference in reading, And there's a difference when it's put to music.
When it's set to music, it's set in the spirit.
Yes.
That's why it's so important that what you allow to be digested in your spirit
And
is
that's
powerful.
why it's important what kind of music your children
There
listen.
you go.
What kind of music you put in your car, in your radio. That is why it's so important.
I didn't understand the place that music played until I started really looking at what God was telling me that He wanted to say. And I'm like, what is it that you want to say to your people? I mean, why can't you use the avenues that are already out there? He said, I'm doing something different.
You know, it is so coincidence or God's will. You know, when you're sitting and talking, when God gave me this mandate to host this show, that's exactly what. My God, there's TBNS 24-hour shows. There's Daystar has it. Why do we need another one? You know, I tried to block it and says, okay, God, later. Okay, God, later. Then somebody else would come and ask me to do something. Somebody else will come and talk about it. And I said, God, you will never leave me alone.
No.
You know, this is not my comfort zone. I'm not a public speaker. I have never done TV or broadcasting or nothing.
But that's the only place He
I
wants
am a
us.
businesswoman.
Yeah, but He only wants us in places we have not been, so that when He completes it, we'll know it's just Him.
Just Him. And then He also knows what He has instilled in us.
Yes.
We may not have used it.
Right.
But God knows. I've created you with all these qualities in there. I'm just bringing, just trust me.
And but I think the challenge is, I kept trying to see, how are you going to do this? Because see, my own knowledge, I worked with Stevie Wonder, I worked with the Pointer Sisters, so I worked in the music industry, James Cleveland, with some of everybody. So my knowledge was like, oh God, there's no place for this. God said,
There's no market for this.
I said, who's going to play it on the radio? God said, I need you to trust me.
That's right.
Because my voice is always heard. So what am I doing now? I'm trusting God
Trusting and obeying.
and obeying. That's it. I trust and
Trusting
I
and-
pray, trust, and obey.
Okay. That wonderful topic. How did you lose the 60 pounds?
Oh, wow. Can I, Cindy Trim's book,
Cindy
a
Trim.
good friend of mine, I was dealing with a battle with my son, called a good friend in Texas, and she gave me the book, Cindy Trim, Rules of Engagement.
Oh, rules of engagement.
The Lord told me to read the 10-page prayer. I was already going to the gym, but you know, it never changes until He speaks.
That's right.
So when He told me to go to the gym and read that prayer 3 times, I'm like, okay, why do I need to read this prayer 3 times on the bike? Well,
Same
60
thing.
minutes.
Why does a leper has to go dip himself 7 times? Can
Thank
you
you.
do 1 time?
60 minutes went by on the bike. And I said, but why am I reading the prayer 3 times? He said, because every time you read it, something is falling off.
Amen.
When I tell you that mentally, my mindset changed, so I never thought I could go to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles and not eat their chicken or their waffles. I never thought that I could walk by cheesecake. I thought I was supposed to eat every piece of cheesecake there was. But God said, what I have given you is a weapon to destroy the inner battlegrounds that have kept you in bondage and in hostility to yourself. Yes. He said, and every time you've read, you have come against every weapon the enemy has used against your spirit. Now that your spirit is free, I was going to my Weight Watcher meetings and they were like, you're not supposed to lose 4 pounds a week. You're not. I said, then tell God that, because you know, and then the Lord gave me a system even within Weight Watchers, because the Lord told me, go to Weight Watchers. I'm like, I'm going to go, but I'm not going to keep going to the meetings. Honey, every place I traveled in this country, I went to a Weight Watcher meeting. But even there, the leader, she said, but what else are you doing? I said, well, before I come to Weight Watchers, I do not deal with weight. I deal with what God gave me before the scale. And the Lord had me every week to go over, what were your victories this week? I drank 6 bottles of water, because also I took my weight and divided it in half, and that was the amount of ounces of water I needed to intake every day. I said, Lord, how am I going to drink all that water? He said, you're going to put some on your...
live in the bathroom?
I didn't. If you ask him, I realized that what I had not done is made him captain of the whole ship.
Whole ship.
He told me, he said, take 1 bottle of water, drink it when your feet hit the floor. I said, okay, gross, but I'll do it. I did that. He said, drink another before you go out of the house. I did that. That was about 10 o'clock. But I started my workout at 5 o'clock in the morning. So at my prayer time, he said, meet me at the gym. I'm like, what? He said, meet me at the gym. I'll be at the gym. I'll meet you on the bike. There has never been a bike ride smoother than the ride you take with the Lord.
Amen.
Because he gives you double for every bit of trouble that you have. I saw myself going through things and doing things that I had done before because he let me go to the gym long enough without him to know the difference of when he showed up. Oh, yes. My spirit changed. I had an inner peace that surpassed all understanding. I was weighing, I was doing everything, walking, drinking. I was eating food at Thanksgiving time and getting up from the table. He said, now you're finished, get up. And I'm like, he said, you don't need seconds, you're full. Get up and start clearing the table. Every step of the way. But see, that was the key of what happened in the hospital. What happened in the hospital is I learned how to hear from God.
His voice.
Oh my God, the personal relationship, the way he was speaking to me. Dr. Ron Elmore told me, I said, I think he's trying to drive me crazy. He said, no, God's not trying to drive you crazy. He said, God speaks to everyone. He said, you just so happen to be one of the people who listens. So what's happened for me, what I'm doing now is learning to continue to fellowship with him, to be obedient to him, increase prayer time, and just moving in obedience and loving my life.
How is your beautiful daughter?
Oh my God, my beautiful daughter is my prayer partner. Oh. She is powerful.
How old is she?
She is 27 years old.
27 years old.
27 years old. And I tell you, I understand why the devil was working so hard to destroy her, because even throughout the pregnancy, they kept saying, oh, you need to abort this baby. She's going to be born with Down syndrome. This is not showing up. And the Lord kept saying, keep this child.
Amen.
And when she was born, she skipped 2 grades in high school, and she graduated 2 years early from high school and went to college at 15.
Amen.
And she is a weapon for the devil. The devil cannot, oh my God.
That's what the devil wanted to destroy.
And my son started preaching at 13. So even coming out of a rough marriage, lots of stuff going wrong in the marriage, God took every heartache and put a melody to my pain.
You said, I just thought God fell off his throne, but I want to tell you, sister, he's still on the throne.
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 And, you know, your commitment to listen to him is what has changed.
Yeah.
And what are you doing today and exciting? Where are you?
Where I am today, I'm working on a new project that I'm finishing up, and he's walking me through that. I got to tell you this. The other week, I started working on, God gave me a word after watching this man talk to this woman that was hopeless. And I sat there and I'm like, oh God, what is he going to say to her? And he helped her. And in my hallway, I heard God in this ear say, there's a healing that goes deeper than the eye can ever see, wrapped from the pains suffered from the cross at Calvary. I said, oh my God, that's a song. The only songs that I get are the ones that he gives me.
He gives you.
And so what I'm doing now, check me out on Facebook, Al McWell, at AOL.com, or Al McWell Facebook or Instagram. And you can continue with me with this journey of hearing and listening to God.
Sing us a song that's in your heart while we go out.
There's a healing that goes deeper than the eye could ever see. It's wrapped from the pain suffered from the cross at Calvary. We have this assurance of life eternally from the pains for our healing from the cross at Calvary.
Wow, it's powerful. You don't even need music or track or nothing.
Well, I grew up in a little Baptist church.
God bless the Baptist.
And he has.
He has.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. It was such a blessing. You have a heavenly voice.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You know, it's just like the angels sing. It's just like the angels sing. And I know when we get to heaven, we'll say, that's Al McWell's voice. You know, she is singing. But you know, I want to emphasize in the obedience of God and also training your ears
Hear.
to hear His voice.
Here, it's relationship.
It's a relationship.
And you know what? If the old people used to say you need to know God for yourself, I thought that meant going to church. No, it means spending
Personal
time with Him,
relationship.
personal relationship
Yes.
with God. And you know what? And I want to encourage someone today that it's not about just what's on TV. It's about taking that time by yourself, with yourself, and giving yourself to God.
He's so real.
Yes.
You know, there is a place in my house where I spend time with God in prayer, and if I'm busy or I get a phone call or something, and then I go the next day, I hear the voice of God saying, "Where were you? I was waiting for you."
He's always there.
And I'm just thinking of all the millions of people on
Yes.
earth. My Creator was there to give me His time.
Creator of the universe.
You know, it is so personal. It is so real. And I encourage each and every one of you, take a little time out of your life, a little time to spend that one-to-one time with God. You know, close that cell phone, the iPad, the
Yes.
TV, computer, everything. A few minutes in your daytime, that would enrich you. And remember, the amazing grace of God is the power that bridges the gap between man and God.
Thank you.